Moving on, so who is a non-resident? There are different definitions. If you've not stayed, we are going to be talking a little bit about the income tax definition right now. If you've been in India for if you've not been in India, if you've not stayed in India for 6 months approximately in the last 1 year, most likely you are a resident. If you are non-resident, if you've not really stayed in India, there are some criteria that you must look into. So let's discuss some guidelines. Earlier, you would probably carry the cash, you being a non-resident would carry the cash to India, or you could send it through a friend or a relative traveling to India and deposit this currency and deposit it into your NRO account. However, right now you cannot send any money through a friend or a relative. It has to be your own money for you to exchange it and for you to deposit it. PAN card, the income tax identification has become really important, and you would see that you need to quote a PAN card for a lot of transactions now. You need to quote a PAN card for buying shares. You would need to quote a PAN card for any service or goods amounting exceeding 2 lakh rupees. You must quote a PAN card if you're depositing money more than 50,000 rupees. And so if you have an immovable property, a lot of our clients are have immovable properties in India. They're based outside India, but they have immovable properties in India. Or they might be inherited property or a property they might have purchased or during their stay in India. And so if you're looking to sell that property now, you must have an income tax identification number. For a lot of you who bought properties while staying in India, you would probably have a tax identification number. You would have a PAN number, as we call it. But those of you who've inherited the property from a parent, you might not necessarily have a PAN card. And that could create a lot of problem. You really need to have an identification number. And if you're looking to sell your existing property, I would really recommend that you first look into setting up an identification before you enter into that transaction. Also, if you are inheriting a property and you want to sell it and you don't have a PAN, you will not be able to repatriate that money back to your home country. So you really need to have an identification number. A lot of our clients, even though having an identification number and even though they're generating some income in India, they're not really complying with the procedural formalities. They're not complying with filing annual tax returns. And if you've not done that for last 2 or 3 years, it's going to get very difficult for you to repatriate any money that you would generate by selling any asset in India, because you would need to comply with the tax laws of filing the returns and complying with the procedures before your bank would allow you to transfer that money. So that's something that you should keep in mind. Moving on, repatriation, the one of the most commonly asked question, which is taken even more relevance post demonetization, is that how do I take my money back to my home country? How do I remit this money? There's been a lot of there's a lot of instability and a lot of uncertainty in the economic climate right now in India, not just amongst resident Indians but also non-residents. And a lot of them want to switch their assets. A lot of them want to um, nullify their existing position in the Indian markets in terms of the stock exchange, the security market, or any portfolio of fixed assets or capital assets. And we're getting a lot of these queries, especially post demonetization. What is important here to understand is that the government, for most part, does not have a problem if you are making a transaction via a banking channel. The entire issue of demonetization has been around curbing black money and cash. And so you should probably take some security from the fact that if you are uh, if you are making transactions through a relevant bank channel, you should not worry about demonetization. But if you're looking to transfer some money back to your home country by selling immovable property, what you can do is you are going to be governed by the RBI laws, the Central Bank of India's foreign currency laws. You're going to be governed by that, which allows you to remit up to USD 1 million in a financial year. It's not a calendar year, mind you. In every financial year, you can remit up to 1 million USD on sale of an asset, which seems sufficient for most part for a lot of people out there. But there's an added complication here, which is that you must quote your income tax identification number that we've been talking about for these transactions. And if you want to remit this money back to India, back to your home country, you must settle all your tax liability for that particular year, and you must ensure that all your returns have for the last 2 or 3 years have been filed and have been complied with. So if you want to sell a property in India right now, the first step that I would advise is to make sure that you've been in compliance with your income tax returns. If you have some income from India against the property or otherwise, you must ensure that you have filed your returns before you sell the property, because most likely when you are remitting that kind of money outside India, it's going to catch the attention of the tax authorities, and they're going to have to ask you, they're going to probably ask you to um, explain the sale of the property and explain the remittance and everything around it. And so that is probably the first area which you must look into. A lot of times we also have clients asking us what happens if they get a PAN card issued. A lot of times, if you are doing business in India, if you have income from India, if you want to open a bank account into India, if you have a property that is inherited, you have to you have to open an income tax identification number, and obtaining this does require some amount of time. It can take up to 2 weeks to generate an income tax identification. And a lot of times we get asked, if I have a PAN card, does that necessarily mean that I need to file an income tax return? Does that mean that I need to comply with the procedure of filing a return every year, even though I don't have sufficient income into India? And the answer to that is no. You do not need to file an income tax return if you have a PAN card. Just by the virtue of having a PAN card, there's no further obligation on you. Your PAN card would be required to be quoted on specified transactions that we've discussed, like if you're buying shares, if you're buying property, if you're selling property, if you're depositing cash into the bank exceeding a certain amount. Uh, your PAN card would be quoted in all these places, but it does not mean that you need to file an income tax return. You only need to file an income tax return if if your income for that particular year exceeds a certain threshold. And so to recapture everything that we've discussed till now, if you are a non-resident, you have currency in hand that you want to bring back to India, which you want to exchange, you can only do so much right now. However, there's an amnesty scheme that you can participate in, which could mean erosion of 50% of the money that you have in hand, but you get to keep the balance 50%. You must note that for doing all of this, you must be in India. You must have a PAN card. You must ensure that your returns have been complied for the last few years. After demonetization was announced, the government has recently, the income tax department, they've sent out notices in thousands of people who've deposited cash into the bank exceeding a certain threshold. So there certainly is a lot of activity happening around that. And so the last thing that you would want right now is to make an explanation to the income tax department as to why you've not complied with the returns for the last few years and the subsequent penalty that could be imposed. It feels too much of a risk to be betting on yourself right now. So these are all the major issues around demonetization with the latest up-to-date information. If you have any particular query, if you are a company, if you have a company in India and you have cash carried back into your home country in Indian currency of 500 rupee and the old 1000 rupee, there are some ways that you could probably exchange that money, or you could use that money into legal tender. Uh, and if you need any particular query, if you have any particular query, please feel free to reach out. And my email is shashwat@artosian.com, and that's my direct email on which I can be reached to. And I look forward to talking again soon. Thank you for watching.